Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. We got you covered today with another daily drop. I am Bryant with publisher Andrew Jones, and today's drop subject is UNC basketball, specifically the 2025-2026 season. We are looking ahead and talking about what is an acceptable campaign under head coach Hubert Davis, who enters his fifth season in Chapel Hill. And just a brief update on UNC's non-conference games this season to give you guys a little snapshot of what we're looking at ahead of November and December. They will play at home against Central Arkansas, Radford, Kansas, Navy, USC Upstate, and East Carolina. They will also play on the road, most likely, in the ACC-SEC Challenge. They will play a neutral site games against Michigan State and St. Bonaventure, and then are expected to play once again in the CBS Sports Classic. But entering year 5 under Hubert Davis, first let's kind of go back to what the first 4 seasons looked like. The first season featured a national runner-up appearance as an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament. The second season was a missed NCAA tournament. Third season was a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, and UNC reached the Sweet 16. And this past season, they won the play-in game against San Diego State before falling to Ole Miss in the round of 32. So, what are some acceptable expectations or a season for Hubert Davis in year 5? For me, I think there's no budging on UNC needs to finish top 4 in the ACC. They finished 5th this past season, but that was in a very weak ACC. I would argue, if they played in a tougher league or in years past, they would have finished 6, 7, maybe even lower than that. So to me, a top 4 finish in the ACC play is a non-negotiable. And this may not be the most popular answer, but for me, I think reaching the second weekend of the tournament, a Sweet 16 appearance, especially if UNC does finish as a 1 or 2 seed, and earn that in the NCAA tournament, that's something that UNC has to reach regardless. Some can argue a lot further than that, but I think depending on just the regular season, what these expectations are as we progress, I think the Sweet 16 is a non-negotiable. And of course, reaching that 20-win mark, that should not be the standard for UNC basketball, but that should be something that absolutely has to happen. And UNC should, I would expect, at least for me, in acceptable terms, 25-win season as well. There are a lot of moving parts, so we can argue about.
There are a lot of moving parts.
In terms of which players has to do this, which player has to do that.
Yeah.
Talking about Hubert Davis specifically, those are my 3 top 4 in the ACC, Sweet 16. And I want to say 25-win season, especially if they do add 2 non-conference games and reduce the ACC schedule by 2 games, which
the schedule is what it is. The schedule is there's still flexibility in the schedule. I don't want to get lost in any of that minutia. We're not going to get lost in the roster or anything like that. This is strictly what is acceptable for a 5th-year coach in North Carolina with Hubert Davis's experiences, with all the people he played under Dean, played for Pat Riley, coached under Roy. I mean, and he's given this job. It was given to him, and it will be his 5th year. If he wants year number 6, there's a standard, and that standard has only been met one of the first 4 seasons. And the first year getting a national championship game, the back end was the standard, the front end was not. They were on the fence. If they don't beat Syracuse that Monday night before they go to Duke and beat Duke and K's last home game, that's a must-win game for them. Or they got to go to the ACC tournament, maybe win the whole thing. So they were an 8 seed. And they were an 8 seed after beating Syracuse in that game, winning at Duke, clobbering Virginia in the ACC tournament, and then get beat by Virginia Tech, who won the tournament. And they were an 8. So they jumped a lot. They were probably not going to get in. So that's a fence wobbling as you get into March. First year, second year, first preseason number 1, not make the tournament. Third year, number 1 seed. People put a little more into the loss of the ACC tournament championship game because it was state, but hey, it gave the world the great NC State story. And then losing in the Sweet 16 when they were ahead, RJ goes 0 for 9. Jalen Withers takes that unfortunate shot. Elliot Cadeau sits the last 13 minutes of the game. People scratching their heads on that, and they lose. And then this past season, I would say this past season was an underachievement just because of it's North Carolina. It may not have been a gross underachievement because of the team, because it wasn't a well-composed club. I still think they should have won more games, should have been better. he should have gone to the bigger lineup sooner and stuck with it. Perhaps they never would have played in Dayton and they would have been in a better situation. They weren't. That's what they were. Lowest seed ever for Carolina. That's what he's done in 4 years. So when you look at it that way, he's got to have a good year, a really good year. Because do you want to become UCLA? Or do you want to stay North Carolina? Kentucky's done a nice job bridging eras, coaching eras, and winning. Kentucky's been really good at that. Carolina hasn't really had to do it so much because Roy was out there to save everything. He was already a proven legend. I mean, he got to Carolina and was a Hall of Famer a few years later. Matt Doherty or Bill Guthridge wasn't a long-term solution, and he didn't recruit great. Matt Doherty comes in. There were a lot of issues, and it wasn't going to work out. And then Roy couldn't turn Dean down a second time. Now Hubert's there. Hubert's carrying that torch. There are a lot of wonderful qualities, Brian, about Hubert Davis as Carolina's coach. There are a lot of things that he does that kind of fall in line a little bit with the way Dean Smith did things personally. The question I have, how much of that is even necessary now? He wants it. I can't coach you unless I know you. I get that, and I admire that. And I wish we lived in a universe where that was still 100% part of the process, but I'm not sure it is, unfortunately. So can he adjust? I still think he needs to adjust. Can he figure out his team earlier in the season than he has previously? Those are huge things for him this year. So as far as the question, what is an acceptable season? Well, those things must be done. He's got to get this get to know this new roster fast. You got 10 practices in July, use every one of them. They get those workouts in September, just make the most out of it. You get into official start of practice at the end of September, into October. Got to change it up for what he's done before because he didn't get to know the team soon enough before. So if he does that, he's got a chance because there are some decent parts. We don't know if there's some blow-up guys. They got to blow up. We haven't seen them do that. But regardless of the lineup, regardless of the roster, if you're in year 5 at UNC and you've got his first 4 years, you say what, 25 wins, top 4 of the ACC, 25 wins in Sweet 16?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that would be acceptable, depending on how many losses. You kind of want to avoid double-digit losses, but if you're going to get to the Sweet 16 and you're a top 4 seed in the ACC, you're probably going to play 35 games. So 25-10, 25-9, probably around there, I would say. I mean, that's a run-of-the-mill year for Dean Smith and Roy Williams. And I don't compare Hubert to Dean and Roy. We get that every once in a while. This is North Carolina. What is North Carolina without Dean and Roy? You had the Frank McGuire era. You had some stuff in the 40s. You had some stuff in the 20s. A couple of good teams in the 30s. It's Roy and Dean. So that's
they're the ones who set the standard. That we're going to compare people to the people who set that standard.
Nick Saban has 8,462 national championships. And you go to a Bama game, there's cats out there wearing those houndstooth hats. A bear wouldn't have done it like that. I mean, they're still going to be that way. And that's great. That's why the culture of the program is so important. And Carolina's that way too. So Hubert embodies a lot of things that you want, but he has to win. This has to be a good team. And they have to look well coached, in my opinion. That's acceptable. And if it's acceptable and he passes that, there will be no discussion about whether or not he'll have year 6. If he doesn't and falls short and falls considerably short, that discussion will take place when January and February hit, and it should take place when January and February hit.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, if they're on track for an acceptable season, that should not be a conversation that happens in the midst of the season when you still have a fair amount of at least ACC games left to play. But in you listing out the first 4 seasons and kind of how things progress, it is fair to say that the seasons have not been acceptable for the most part. The end of the season, where they end up, may have been, in particularly the first season as well. When you look at your preseason number 1, you missed the tournament. They did win the ACC regular season and were a 1 seed. But when you lose in the Sweet 16 in a game that people believe you should win in, there are going to be some questions. And
look at that team, though. Look at that club. UConn rolled them. They bungled that last possession against Kentucky. They lost in Bahamas. I mean, the Oklahoma game right before Christmas was a huge game. Oklahoma was number 8 in the country. They were undefeated, hadn't played anybody, but they were undefeated. And Carolina closed strong, and that was okay. They got that win. The one they missed the year before, basically, they got that win. So it was right before Christmas when they started to churn their wheels. So it took almost 2 months then. And then they rolled through the ACC, started out 10-0 before Georgia Tech mysteriously beat them. So, yeah, I would love to know what people think. What is acceptable? Give us numbers.
Yeah,
total wins, ACC placement, how far in March? I think 25, fourth, Sweet 16 is fair. I don't think that that's too much to ask. I think Carolina fans, quite frankly, look at that as the baseline. Every season should be 25 wins. Dean Smith finished in the top 3 in the ACC for 36 straight years.
And that's a fair ask of UNC fans, particularly when you look at the history of the program, asking for those 25 wins, especially when the number of games seem to increase if you were to be that successful in the Sweet 16 in top 4 in the ACC. You could almost pencil that in for UNC, and I do not think that I think that's a fair ask.
He had
year 5.
He had 12 straight Sweet 16s. Dean's and he finished 97, so 97 Final Four, 95 Final Four, 93 Final Four, 91 Final Four. He turned over a national title team to Guthridge. They didn't get it done, but he turned that over to him, best team in the country. So most of the people that all the people that watch those teams and cheer for those teams have a very high standard. A lot of the ones that are younger that didn't see those teams are raised by people who did and who tell stories of those teams. That is the standard. And the day it's no longer the standard, it will be a sad day for the University of North Carolina and the sad day for its fan base. So the standard has not exactly been adhered to too much lately. You go back to since 2017 when they won the national title. 18, they got thumped in the second round, got dominated on the glass by Texas A&M. 19, they were vomiting. And I was in that locker room after the game, guys are vomiting, right? In their bathroom showers, vomiting. They still got thumped on the glass to Auburn. 2020, they wouldn't have made the tournament. There wasn't a tournament. They were terrible. 21, the only Roy Williams team to ever lose in the first round of the tournament. And then we outlined 22 through this past season. It hadn't really been a standard for a while. 2017, 2019, I'll give them the standard. That was a good team that was ascending. Cam Johnson was becoming a superstar right before our eyes. But they've got to get back to that. And if Hubert wants to keep the job, I think he has to meet that, because North Carolina, if he's not the guy to deliver the standard, then I would think that the powers that be would say, look, we got to find someone that will. We can't draw a new line in the sand and create a new standard. I'm sure that's what the powers are saying and will say. So it's a big year for him. It's a big year for Carolina fans to see what is acceptable. I mean, if they're in that 22-10 range and they're 5th in the league and they're trying to avoid Wednesday and you're well into February, that's not a great sign.
Nope. I agree. And like you mentioned, 25 wins, top 4 in the ACC and Sweet 16. Would expect to be an acceptable season, maybe not what.
And we want to know what everybody else thinks. And Brian, we want to know what everybody else thinks.
Let us know what you think in the comments.
All of our different platforms. Tell us what you think is acceptable. Tell us if we're nuts.
Yep.
If it's higher, I want to know the guy that says, "Look, Elite 8, none of this screwing around stuff anymore." I mean, North Carolina has won an NCAA tournament game since 2019 in only 2 tournaments, and one of them was a playing game this past year. Right? So, no, 3 tournaments.
3, yeah.
22, 24, and then 25. Those are the 3. And then they've gotten to the Elite 8 once since 2017. Once. Yep. Carolina fans want to troll Duke about what they haven't done. Carolina's been to 1 Elite 8 since 2017. That was when Nate Britt was on the team. That was when Stillman White was on the team. That's when Isaiah Hicks and Kennedy Meeks were on the team. That was only once since then they've been to Elite 8. They got to get back to that stuff. They got to make the standard matter and judge according to the standard, period.
And let us know what you guys think is that standard and what is acceptable. Leave us a comment. We want to hear from you. Like, subscribe on all platforms. Let us know what's an acceptable year for UNC in year 5 under Hubert Davis. But for now, I'm Bryant and he's AJ, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks.